For my wife's birthday this year, she asked me to build her one of these. Actually, the bottom piece I built a couple of years ago. She asked me to build the top piece. Is that the buffet or the Hutch? I can't remember. Anyway, she did this up on some software that she has with the dimensions. So, like with any project, you sort of do a guesstimate of what materials you need. And so I ran out to Home Depot, which unfortunately is the best place that we can get lumber here in Newfoundland, and picked up some poplar. Now the remnants of my first trip is up here. There's a piece there, another piece there, and a few other odds and ends there. I end up cutting the pieces for the sides, the top and the bottom, and she wants it doubled up inside here. So I end up cutting all those pieces, and that's right there, minus this little stack. And what frustrated me was that, you know, the length of the boards, I went and purchased 1 by 6 by 6, and the length was anywhere from 1/4 of an inch short of 6 feet to 1/4 of an inch longer. Longer's fine. And what irritated me even more is that the width. It was, I had a couple of pieces that were 5.5, which is what I expected, while the majority of the pieces were a 1/16, 32nd, and even one was just about 1/8 of an inch narrower than the rest of them. I didn't realize that till after I had all these boards cut. So now I'm going to have to rip them to the narrowest width, which I think is 5 3/8. So then I'm going to rip those, and then I'm going to assemble them using pocket screws. Not only were the boards different width, but they're also bloody tapered in on the end. But finally, bit of patience at my table saw, they're all the same uniform width, which will make the building of this cabinet much easier, I think. A quick way I found to make plugs for these Craig holes is actually to get a corresponding same size of dowel. This is 3/8. You hammer it in the hole, and I have my secret special all natural glue in there. You hammer it into the hole, and then you cut it flush with a flush cut saw. Now I'm going to be using my Milwaukee multi-tool here, but it's the same process. Then with a little bit of sanding, that'll be fine. Oh, the beauty of woodworking. I was going to install the top and bottom parts of the carcass, basically like the piece going across here and the piece going across here, just to make it a unit. But then I took a closer look at the plan, and it has this little skirting here, and it's not showing the bottom piece of the cabinet. So I took a look, and what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to cut this here. Well, put another screw in here, drill this out, and cut this off here so that the skirting will go in flush to the edge of the cabinet. And in addition to that, I'm going to have to rip a little piece off this board, like the width of the board, so that the skirting, grab a piece of board here, the skirting will mate up like that sort of thing. Yeah. So anyway, that's it with woodworking. There's plans are good to give you an idea, but there's always slight modifications and that sort of stuff that you have to do. Okay, now this is much better. There's now this is not the actual width. This is a little bit narrower. Now it has this little notch here where it was flush before. So that piece will go right along here, right along the full width, and there would be a little scallop along here. So yeah, there we go. To make the curve in the bottom of the apron for underneath the door, I've clamped the board to my workbench, marked the center of the curve, and tacked in a couple of finish nails. This here in my hand is a hacksaw blade. I put the hacksaw blade on the end of each nail, bend it upwards, see that curve? I'll just bring it back a little and hold it, and then just strike a line. That'll give me a perfect curve. I've got the curves cut right there, attached to the bottom shelf and attached to the two sides. The doors are going to be 24 inches, so I have to, I guess, mark up 24 inches or 24 and a quarter or something like that, and then put the top part of the panel in place. I've got the case built, and now I'm working on the doors. The actual width of the cabinet is 28 inches by 24 inches high. So I'm over here now cutting the rails and the stiles for the door using my table saw and miter saw. You know what drives me crazy? Trying to get these stupid stickers off the board. The finished doors, I use pocket screws to attach everything in the back. In the final version, the back of this will be covered in chicken wire, so you'll see it from the outside. And there's the other door right there. With the doors done, I'm going to be focusing on the molding up here. I'm doing some playing around with some router bits, and I discovered that this is a nice little profile. I cut 45s on the top and the bottom. I'm thinking it'll go on like that. I think it's going to look nice. I've got a piece of 1x3 poplar here, 8 feet long. I'm going to cut it into more manageable pieces. 2 pieces for the side, 1 for the front. Now run it through the router over here. That's a fairly chunky router bit, as you can see, and it does take a lot of wood out of the piece of board that I'm going to be using for molding. Let's cut the boards and shape them. Now I just have to cut the bevel on the inside, top, and the bottom. What I really like about woodworking is that you can take a plain piece of wood like this and turn it into something beautiful. I was really surprised on how long it took me to figure out how to cut a compound cut. I thought it was simple, but it wasn't until I figured out what I had to do. Essentially, this edge here that goes against the carcass has to go up against the fence like this, so it's sitting on an angle, and then you cut it on the 45. You don't have to bevel the saw, you just keep it straight up, but you just put it on a 45 down there. It took me a long while to figure that out. Maybe some others of you may have figured it out right away, but it's the first time I've ever done it. Looks good. And the finished molding, you can see I've got some sawdust and some glue mixed together to fill in brad holes and a few other little bits and pieces. So I'll let that dry, and then I'll sand that off, and it should be fine. I think it looks kind of nice. What I've done now is I've actually filled in the pocket screw holes on the doors. Now I still need to go over those with some material and fill in the little gaps and stuff, like as you can see right there at the tips. That's nothing too serious. I've also went ahead and I've sanded all the material off of the brad holes on the top molding. Next, I'm looking at installing the doors. I picked up some hinges. Where are they? Right here. Some of these little that's not focusing. They are 2-inch hinges, Anyway, I'm going to be using those on the doors. So what I've done is I've just put a couple of strips with some 23-inch brad nails, one on top and one on bottom here, so that I can actually lay the doors in flush. Make sure they're oriented right. So that's what it will look like. That's so I can get a good feel for where the hinges will go. To help with setting the doors correctly on the hinges, I've got some two-sided tape stuck onto the hinges there. So hopefully when I put the door in, I squeeze it into place and I tip it back slowly, the hinges should stay in place so that I can mark them. The double-sided tape actually worked. I was able to swing open the door and mark it underneath right there, and able to drill the holes on both sides, and it worked excellent, and they fit perfect. I removed the doors so I could put the brackets in for the shelves. Several options there. They're at about 4-inch intervals, so when I get the two shelves in there, everything will look fine. Also install the magnetic latches for the doors just to hold them in place. So the doors now are just over there taking a rest on top of my tires. For the foot of the cabinet, which is this section right here, this is what my wife would like. One piece 3 inches, bevel, another piece with straight edges picking up on that bevel, and then a final piece, and then this here, and then the unit will rest on that. So I'll start cutting some pieces for this now. The boards for the feet don't look like much right now. Assembled, the pieces look quite different. With the feet done and the brackets in for the shelving, all that's left to do with the construction is the back and actually build the shelves. And when that's done, it's painting and it's complete. Thank you, Home Depot, for ensuring that each and every piece of board has one of these stupid stickers on it. It takes forever to get these stickers off. I actually had to run out to Home Depot and pick up a couple more boards. I was short 2 of these and a piece here to make the shelves. This is part of the fun of woodworking. I bought these panels, these boards, for the back of the unit. I was hoping that they'd overlap this 3/4 outside edge. However, it went butted right up against the edge, and you come right over here to the other side. There's a stupid little gap there. Like, really? If the boards had been a little tiny bit wider, or the cabinet just a little tiny bit narrower, it would have been perfect. Now I just gotta figure out what to do with that gap. And really, what's a woodworking project without a little bit of personal DNA involved? Yeah, no cutting my finger, nothing serious. I just got some tissue wrapped around it and a bit of Scotch tape just to keep it in place, but a little bit of sanding will take care of that. I think what I'm going to do for the edges here is I'm going to rip this board 1/4 of an inch thick, same thickness as that, and brad nail along the edge. It'll have a little reveal along the edge here, so it'll be in from the edge a little bit, and that should work. I was thinking about having something sort of come up and overlap this, but I don't think I'll do that, because then it'll be higher than or thicker than the back. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'm just going to rip a couple pieces of this board here and tack them onto the edges. I must say that the back looks pretty nice. You can see the very subtle grooves in the board. What I did is I just cut into the boards, maybe 1/3 of the depth with one rip of the table saw. Now I just have to make the shelves. I'm making the plate groove here now. What I've got done is I just have the table saw like about a quarter of an inch deep, and I'm just making a few passes here with the table saw, just putting in a groove. I've got to make one more pass to take out that last little bit right here, and then we'll have the plate groove. I've got the back on, as you can see, with the grooves. I have the shelves cut and in place. Next step is to actually remove all the hardware from the door, from the cabinet here, and from the doors over there. Paint it and reassemble. I'm now working on the first coat of paint. Just a very thin layer, just as a base coat. First coat on the doors and the hutch. We went out to our stock of chicken wire and selected a piece with the proper gauge and patina that we wanted, and cut it out a little bit bigger than the back of the door here, and we're just going to put it in place and stable it.